Let's take a look at Zohran Mamdani. He gave a speech about Islamophobia because, frankly, Andrew Cuomo has doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on Islamophobia. We all saw the ad where he basically called anyone who supports Zohran Mamdani, a thief, an abuser, like a violent protester. Like it was disgusting. Like the AI ad that he posted for all of 2 minutes. That is out there, and it is a sign that Andrew Cuomo's campaign is dying. Well, let's take a look at how Zohran Mamdani addresses the Islamophobia.
6 years ago,
Islamophobia was a bug, now it's a feature.
Well, for Andrew Cuomo, not for really anybody else.
After I'd announced I was running for state assembly, a well-meaning Muslim uncle pulled me aside. He smiled softly and looked at me with care. In a quiet voice, he told me I did not have to tell people I was Muslim. His eyes kind, his beard proud, and his face heavy with the implications of the unsaid. I had not learned the lesson that he had been taught time and again. It is the lesson that safety could only be found in the shadows of our city. That it is in those shadows alone where Muslims could embrace their full identities. And that if we were to emerge from those shadows, that it is in those shadows that we must leave our faith. These are lessons that so many Muslim New Yorkers have been taught again and again. And over these last few days, these lessons have become the closing messages of Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, and Eric Adams. Yesterday, Andrew Cuomo laughed and agreed when a radio host said that I would cheer another 9/11.
Yeah, it's, do I have that clip handy? Ah, yes, here we go.
Morning that Andrew Cuomo said this that got a lot of attention.
Any given morning there's a crisis and people's lives are at stake. God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?
I could. He'd be cheering.
It's another problem.
Immediately, Zohran Mamdani taking to social media to call.
Yeah, he'd be cheering. Gross.
Yesterday, Eric Adams said that we can't let our city become Europe. He compared me to violent extremists. And he lied again and again when he said that our movement seeks to burn churches and destroy communities. The day before that, Curtis Sliwa slandered me from the debate stage when he claimed that I support global jihad. And every day, Super PAC ads imply that I'm...
Yeah, Andrew Cuomo saying that Zohran Mamdani would turn New York City into Europe is a reference to what a lot of people on the far right say when they talk about Europe, which is that immigration and migration to Europe from Muslim countries has degraded and destroyed the West. It's a very common talking point, especially on the far right in Europe, and it is now also a talking point of the far right here in the United States. And Andrew Cuomo here is explicitly trying to rally a far right base around himself in the waning hours of the election because he's desperate as heck. And in his desperation, he is turning towards extraordinarily racist attacks.
I'm a terrorist or mock the way I eat. Push polls that ask New Yorkers questions like whether they support invented proposals to make halal food mandatory, or political cartoons that represent my candidacy as an airplane hurtling towards the World Trade Center. But I do not.
Yeah, I think Tim Pool really got one of his big boosts in the far right for going to, I think, Sweden, and going to one of their high crime areas of like that had like immigrants in it, and like tried to smear the area as so scary and dangerous, and literally nothing happened to him while he was there.
I want to use this moment to speak to them any further. I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab. I want to speak to the Muslim who works for our city. Whether they teach in our schools or walk the beat for the NYPD. New Yorkers who all make daily sacrifices for the city they call home, only to see their leaders spit in their face. I want to speak to every child who grows up here, marked as the other, who is randomly selected in a way that never quite feels random, who feels that they carry a stain that can never be cleaned. Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion in this city. I will always remember the disdain that I faced, the way that my name could immediately become Muhammad, and how I could return to my city only to be asked in a double-mirrored room at the airport if I had any plan on attacking it. And since I was very young, I've also known that I was spared the worst of it. I was never pressured to be an informant, like a classmate of mine. I've never had the word terrorist spray painted on my garage as one of my staff had to endure. My mosque has never been set on fire. To be Muslim in New York is to expect indignity. But indignity does not make us distinct. There are many New Yorkers who face it. It is the tolerance of that indignity that does. Since I announced my candidacy for mayor 1 year ago yesterday, I have sought to be the candidate fighting for every single New Yorker, not simply the Muslim candidate. I've carried these indignities with me each moment of this race, doing so all the while as the first major Muslim candidate in the history of our city. I thought that if I could build a campaign of universality, I could define myself as the leader I aspire to be, one representing every...
Cuomo's racism as a good thing in the sense he's scared, and that's why he's making wild swings. As a side note, isn't it funny that TTS can pronounce Zohran Mamdani netter than Cuomo?
I mean, it is true, but like Cuomo's pronouncing it wrong on purpose. Again, because he's trying to court the racists. And like, yeah, it's good for Zohran politically because he gets to come out and make this speech, but like, it's not good insofar as like it mainstreams and gives a green light to this kind of behavior to, you know, the worst elements of New York City. And, you know, they're going to hear that message and they're going to flock around Andrew Cuomo and they're going to feel more emboldened to do the hateful things that these folks do. And I don't think that's a good thing.
New Yorker, no matter their skin color or religion, no matter where they were born. I thought that if I worked hard enough, it would allow me to be that leader. And I thought that if I behaved well enough or bit my tongue enough in the face of racist, baseless attacks, all while returning back to my central message, it would allow me to be more than just my faith. I was wrong. No amount of redirection is ever enough. In doing this, I have told the wide-eyed young child in Jackson Heights or the first-time voter in Parkchester, that they too should remain in the shadows. In many ways, I have become that same uncle who pulled me aside 6 years ago. No more. The dream of every Muslim is simply be treated the same as any other New Yorker. And yet for too long, we have been told to ask for less than that and to be satisfied with whatever little we receive. No more. For as long as we have lived, we have known that no matter what anyone says, there are still certain forms of hate that are acceptable in this city. Islamophobia is not seen as inexcusable. One can incite violence against our mosques and know that condemnation will never come. Elected officials in this city can sell t-shirts calling for my deportation without any fear of accountability. The consequences amidst this inaction are stark. More than 1 million Muslims in this city existing all while being made to feel as if we are guests in our own home. No more. We stand on the precipice of an election, but that is not what today is about. We know that in less than 2 weeks we will say goodbye to a disgraced former governor and our current indicted mayor. The bigger question is whether we are willing to say goodbye to something much larger than either of these two men. It is whether we are willing to say goodbye to anti-Muslim sentiment that has grown so endemic in our city that when we hear it, we know not whether the words were spoken by a Republican or a Democrat. We know only that it was spoken in the language of politics of this city.
God, he's genuinely so insanely good at this. I'm sorry, it's such a classy move to be able to come out and do a speech like this when, you know, like, people's faith is a pretty intensely personal thing to them. And it's especially intensely personal for folks who are in a community that has been persecuted for their religious belief. And like, he is, it takes a lot of effort to go on stage and talk about, folks in your community who've had their places of worship burned down, who have like had accusations painted on their property. Like we're talking like some clan level discrimination against these folks. And like there's a reason why he opened this up when with talking about a Muslim uncle who took him aside and was like, you don't have to say it, because they're worried about his safety. Yeah, he is Zohran Mamdani, among many other things, is a very brave man. Attacking him on the basis of his religious belief, it's a deeply disgusting thing to do. The ability for him to navigate this so gracefully and with an open heart is truly, it's truly moving, and it's truly, I think, a very effective politically, but also just, I think regardless of where you are on this guy, whether or not you're voting for him or someone else, but like, I think a lot of folks look at him and they say, even if it has to be begrudgingly, they like him.
In an era of ever diminishing bipartisanship, it seems that Islamophobia has emerged as one of the few areas of agreement. And while I appreciate all who have rushed to my defense over these past few days, I think of those Muslims in this city who do not have the luxury of being the Democratic nominee, who do not have the luxury of being deemed worthy of solidarity. While my opponents in this race have brought hatred to the forefront, this is just a glimpse of what so many have to endure every day across this city. And while it would be easy for us to say that this is not who we are as a city, we know the truth. This is who we have allowed ourselves to become. And a question lies before each of us. Will we continue to accept a narrow definition of what it means to be a New Yorker, that makes smaller every day the number of those guaranteed a life of dignity? Will we remain in the shadows, or will we together step into the light? There are 12 days remaining until Election Day. I will be a Muslim man in New York City each of those 12 days and every day that follows after that. I will not change who I am, how I eat, or the faith that I am proud to call my own. But there is one thing that I will change. I will no longer...
Zohran's greatest strength beyond the rhetoric and the policy might just be his positivity, his ability to keep positivity and kindness for the opposition in his heart. The Republicans could never.
They genuinely could never.
Longer look for myself in the shadows. I will find myself in the light. Thank you very much.
Did Cuomo apologize?
What kind of question is that at the very end? Did Cuomo apologize? Like, of course he didn't. Of course he didn't. Like, what? He chuckled along with that joke because he intended to. Like, my God. And like, I'm not a religious person, but I recognize that others are, and it's deeply important to them. And I have immense amounts of respect for Zohran Mamdani being able to come out and say what he's saying while being attacked by violent bigots from so many different angles. It's a strength of character that a lot of us could learn from. We live in a time of political monsters, and I am hopeful that Zohran Mamdani can slay one come the election. What was that he mentioned about an informant? After 9/11, the United States, with the Patriot Act, started targeting Muslim New Yorkers specifically to get them to inform on other Muslim New Yorkers in order for the FBI to basically find terrorists. And basically a bunch of like kids in New York City got gang pressed by the FBI into snitching on other Muslim kids who would then get like picked up and like tortured or imprisoned or disappeared for various lengths of time based on the accusations. It was a lot of bullshit. A lot of bullshit. It was a very bad time. And all this to say that finally, just a couple of weeks before the election, folks, Hakeem Jeffries has finally endorsed Zohran Mamdani. It finally happened. He did it. It was like pulling teeth, but he finally did it. In the 11th hour, when literally everyone else had already done it, he finally endorsed Zohran, which is honestly a huge accomplishment. Like, this is the establishment bending the knee to Zohran Mamdani, and I, for one, am here for it. I consider it the kind of final triumph of Zohran and his campaign, that they have been able to best the worst that the establishment could throw at him, both in the form of Andrew Cuomo and in the form of Andrew Cuomo post losing the Democratic nomination. Not everyone. Schumer hasn't. Yeah, that's fine. Everyone fucking hates that guy. Hakeem Jeffries is a big deal because Hakeem Jeffries, like, doesn't have as much power as Chuck Schumer. And, is also under threat from a progressive challenge. So I wasn't expecting Chuck Schumer to endorse, but I was expecting Hakeem Jeffries to endorse. And we finally got to that day. So basically, you can't be Muslim in the USA? That's not what I was saying.
Andrew Cuomo 2 electic bugaloo.
Exactly, Nathan. Thank you for the $5 dono. And also, you can be Muslim in the USA. It's just that, especially in the aftermath of 9/11, the US government did some heinous shit to people they suspected of being Muslims.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. sound. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.